Well, good morning and welcome once again to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and this is my twice weekly webcast, Elevenses, which nearly always goes out live, very occasionally goes out as a recorded show, and even more rarely is missing altogether. So, what have I got for you in today's show? Well, it's Wednesday, the 4th of January. It's back to the regular schedule of news and tips and views on the motorcycling world in general. And I have a fairly busy show today after having thought originally there wasn't actually anything much to talk about after the holiday period. Northants Police are actually going to be using an unmarked camera van to catch speeders, and I'll tell you about their rationale for that. An Australian woman has managed to lose her thumb in a bike crash after a bungled theft attempt from a car. A 2-day ban in Karachi and Islamabad on pillion riding was imposed for New Year in Pakistan. A bike shop owner and his buddy have donated food hampers for the Christmas period. KTM have confirmed an E-Duke model. Royal Enfield's parent company has invested in a Spanish bike maker called Stark. And probably most interesting for anybody who's got an eye on what's going on with the electric motorcycles, new battery technology from Innovate really does seem to be speeding up recharge times. They've been incorporated into Lightning's e-bikes, and I'll have a look at that in a moment too. Meanwhile, Harley Davidson are celebrating 120 years of producing petrol engine motorcycles, and today's discussion point, I'm coming back to the story which I mentioned briefly in the last show about a biker getting his license back from the DVSA after motorcycle entitlement was wrongly left off his license. I now have the full story on that, so I'll come back to that. Don't forget, if you have any comments, questions, puzzles, anything you would like me to talk about actually in a future show, I'm always happy to do that. Do drop me a line. I shall always try to answer you as the show goes on. If I can't do that, I will get back to you at the end of the show. And I just want to welcome Christine, Clive, Nigel, Kevin and Paul, who are all looked in already amongst the viewers. Good to see you here again, folks, and thanks for coming back once again to Elevenses. Right, okay, so let's start with the first story of the morning. Now, this is the one that Northants Police have decided to use what they describe as an unmarked mobile enforcement vehicle, better known to the rest of us, of course, as a camera van. And I believe that is the first time that these vehicles have been seen on UK roads. If I can actually just get the picture to move along, I will show you a photograph of it. There it is. Nothing much of interest really there to see. It's just a grey panel van, but you will notice that there are, it appears to be a drop-down shutter in the back window. Now the van is going to be used, Northants Police, at various locations across the county, but they say that priority will, as always, be given on routes impacted by collisions and where intelligence has been received regarding ongoing issues around poor driver behaviour. Now I say it's in a bid to reduce the number of people killed or seriously injured on the county's roads, and the force claims to have continued to see an increase in the number of people who've been killed on their roads during 2022, with more than 40 fatalities recorded over the last 12 months. So let's just have a listen to what Northamptonshire Police Safer Roads Operations Manager Matt O'Connell said. He said, "We're not going to apologise for how we police the roads if it means that we take the most dangerous drivers off them, especially if it means that we stop just one person from being killed or having to come to terms with life-changing injury. However, with the level of offending across the county, we need to do something different, and the use of unmarked enforcement vehicles might make people think twice before taking unnecessary risks in Northampton." Well, of course, the first question is, if you're going to take the most dangerous drivers off the roads, are those the ones who are a few miles per hour over the speed limit? Clearly, if somebody goes past a 30 mile per hour zone with the camera van in it at 100 miles per hour, then yes, we do want to get those off the road. But the vast majority of speeding offences are people who are transgressing by just a few miles per hour. So I'm not convinced by that argument. The second point is that Northants police argue that since people have got back on the roads since the first COVID lockdown, there's been what they describe as a worrying escalation in the number of collisions due to what they say is a decline in driving standards. Now, as far as I know, the annual Department for Transport figures for crashes and casualties aren't available yet, but Superintendent Jen Helm, she said, "I can tell you that in the last 12 months, 44 people have died on our roads." And she went on to place the blame on poor driver and rider behaviour, which, quote, "we know plays a large part in these deaths, and we know it is on the increase." Well, what the statement didn't say was how many people had died in previous years. So you kind of have to take it on trust that numbers are going up. So I actually looked. I dug out the figures for the previous couple of years, and the fatality rate was in fact 21 in the county in 2020, when lockdown significantly increased the numbers of people staying at home and not driving for obvious reasons. And that went up to 29 in 2021. So 44 last year. Yes, there is an increase in fatal crashes, but looked at in a broader picture, it's against a backdrop of overall road casualties that were falling. Now, if you look at the number of casualties, there were fewer casualties in 2021, 1,317, as against 1,499 in 2019, when there was a full year of normal driving. And as far as I know, that's in line with a steady ongoing overall reduction in casualties across the whole of the UK in the last couple of decades. I haven't dug out detailed figures for Northants. I'm sure they're available somewhere if I drill down deep enough into Google. But the statement also said, "We know that people change their behaviour when they see a marked police vehicle." So how exactly is one unmarked police van going to make a difference across something like 2,800 miles of roads, which that's what there are in Northants? I always kind of think that the statements that the police make to back up the use of vehicles like this are disingenuous at best. Right, okay, so if you've got anything to say about that, obviously I'm more than happy to hear what you do have to say. Don't forget that Elevenses goes out Wednesdays and Sundays at 11. We are in British summertime at the moment. No, we're not. We're in GMT, so I don't know why it says BST. I must correct that. So do look in, and as I say, if you can't find it, there is YouTube as well to go and see all the shows. Martin has looked in and said, "Good morning and Happy New Year." Yes, same to you, Martin. Nice to see you here. Right, so on to today's second story. This is a rather odd one from Australia. A man who spotted somebody attempting to break into his car whilst he was working with a client filmed the moment that the pair of inept robbers jumped back onto a motorcycle and crashed. Now, David Brain said that on Thursday last week he'd left the window down on his car in Brisbane whilst he was working, and he came back to the car to find a man attempting to break into it whilst there was a woman waiting for him who was apparently sat on the back of a nearby motorcycle. And he then followed them across the road, filming as he went, because he said he wanted to make sure that they hadn't stolen his car keys or his wallet. The man jumped back onto the bike and the pair attempted to ride away before it seems they lost control of the motorcycle and crashed into fencing and slid down the pavement. And in the instant, the woman actually managed to sever her thumb, and she can be seen on the video actually cradling her blood-covered hand in the video, although the video in the newspaper report I saw had it all kind of fuzzed out, obviously to avoid shocking people of nervous disposition. She got back on the motorcycle with the man, but was later found wandering around on the nearby highway, apparently, and she was taken to hospital where she's recovering, presumably still thumbless. The man remains on the run, and Queensland police have confirmed that the male suspect is known to them and investigations are ongoing. So, weird one there. Even weirder is if you fancy going for a ride in cities across Pakistan over the new year, you wouldn't have been allowed to take a passenger. And it appears that in both Karachi and Islamabad, the district administrations imposed a ban on pillion riding for 2 days, starting on December the 31st and lasting through till the morning of January the 1st. To ensure, quote, peace and calm in cities ahead of New Year's Eve's celebrations. And they also warned of strict action against those found violating the ban. According to the notification, certain pillion riders may resort to violence and disrupt peace and tranquility on New Year's Eve in Islamabad. Well, there we go. The action was to, quote, safeguard the precious lives of citizens. It also included a ban on firecrackers. Now, more alarmingly, the city administrations also warned the public to avoid the aerial firing of guns, which may cause untoward incidents or loss of human lives. Well, yes, what goes up must come down again. People do get killed by bullets fired into the air. So, not surprisingly, the ban extended to the carrying and display of arms and aerial firing. Now, back in the UK, on a more cheery note, 2 bikers from Chester made up and donated hampers to people in need for Christmas. Gary Fennell, 52, from Chester, who runs the Chester Motorcycle Riders Facebook group, was apparently standing behind a young mum in a local shop when he saw that she didn't have enough money to buy what was described as dinner for her son. Now, he was shocked by that, so Gary paid for the mum's shopping, and he then put out a request for food donations on his Facebook group, and he also contacted his friend Russell Campbell from Breton Motorcycles to see if he too wanted to join together to collect donations. Now, apparently they collected around £500, which was enough to do a shop at Asda and make up 37 food hampers. Now, they asked for nominations of who these hampers should be delivered to on social media, so they were delivered to families in need across Ellesmere, Port and Chester, including one that went to a family whose house had burnt down earlier in the month, and others went to people who had suffered from burst pipes and broken fridges. I can sympathise with anybody who had a broken fridge over New Year, as that's exactly what happened to ours, unfortunately. Russell and Gary also delivered 12 hampers to the People's Pantry Food Bank in Ellesmere Port. So that's pretty nice thing to do, really, I think. Right, a couple of comments on the previous story. Kevin says he welcomes truly effective KSI casualty reduction, but with significant increase in detection probability. Some say there should be a review to the point system, which can easily lead towards a ban. Just 2 speeding offences can result in a ban for new licence holders. Yes, there's an argument, of course, that people shouldn't be speeding in the first place, but I think that there should be some review of the threshold. I think I mentioned in a previous show that I forget how many it was now, getting on for 2 million or something speeding tickets have been handed out by the Met across London in 20-mile-per-hour zones. Now, with the sort of 10% plus 2 threshold, that is 24 miles per hour, and it's frankly technically difficult sometimes to drive a car or a bike without speeding. I only have to sneeze on my 600 and the bike will jump 5 miles per hour. So I'm sort of, I suspect there should be some leeway on those. Nigel says we get these initiatives to reduce road deaths. Another initiative to reduce rising road deaths. If we need a new initiative, it's surely because the previous was a waste of time, other than making money. Incidentally, Northampton did actually say it's not a money-making scheme. Better off firing the useless chief constable and getting someone new. Okay, another slightly contentious viewpoint, but yes, that's something I've been saying for a long time. If we keep needing new safety interventions of previously replacing an old one, then we really ought to question whether the new one's going to work any better than the old one. Simply recycling the same old ideas over and over and over again really isn't actually getting us anywhere. Right, okay, so thank you for those comments. I'm afraid I'm in the skeptical position of not really thinking that these kind of interventions do very much. So let's move on. Let's look at KTM, who have confirmed an eDuke model. Now let's bring up the picture of that, and you can admire it in all its glory. Now that was a spy shot that actually was taken back in the summer of 2019. So whether that is actually what it will look like, I don't know, but it will probably look something like a KTM Duke, for the obvious reason that they would want some kind of continuity. Now, it's been known for a while that India's Bajaj Auto, who are of course the strategic partner of KTM and in fact the manufacturer of these small capacity single cylinder KTMs, there was a 125, there was a 200, I don't know if that's still in production, and of course the 390. They actually build those bikes. So they have been developing an electric version of those two-wheelers. And as I say, that particular machine was spotted as long ago as 2019. Now, presumably the project was delayed by lockdown. But at the time, Bajaj Auto's executive director, Rakesh Sharma, told the world, "We're not ready to say whether it's a scooter or a motorcycle, but we are open to the full spectrum." But the Austrian company has now confirmed that they plan to launch an electric version of the Duke model later this year. Now, the plans were revealed in an investor report from the parent firm, which is Pira Mobility, and of course they also own Husqvarna and Gas. And the inbound Duke is likely to be based on the same platform as the Husqvarna E-Pillion concept bike. Now that appeared in the 2021 Munich Motor Show, so just over a year ago now, and this is said to be due to launch this year. Now the initial concept apparently featured an 8 kilowatt 10 horsepower motor and a swappable battery pack with a maximum range of about 60 miles, 100 kilometers. But it appears the production bike will get an upgrade to a 10 kilowatt motor, which is a little bit punchy, around about 13 horsepower, I think. And that should offer similar performance to a typical 125cc petrol bike, although usually better acceleration, of course. But the battery is now said to be a fixed 5.5 kilowatt unit. Now, price isn't yet known, but whilst the latest word is that KTM and Husqvarna are planning to undercut premium brands, and they say such as Harley Davidson's spin-off Livewire, the fact is that this is very much an entry-level electric machine, and so it will compete more with brands like Super Socko than it would do with Livewire. So it really will be interesting to see if they can keep the price down on these machines. Okay, now anything else I was going to say? Don't forget, if you do miss any of these posts, you can just pop over to my Ko-fi page and see what I've been writing about. Now, something I was doing yesterday was putting the remainder of the 2020 posts up. So if you do follow me on Ko-fi, I do apologize for the barrage of emails telling you that new posts are available. I'm afraid there's nothing I can do about that. I have requested as a feature a digest of new posts rather than an email alert every time I post something. So I don't tend to do these big barrage of posts all at the same time, but I wanted to get 2020 finished, and I will be working to get 2022's posts, because they are stalled at the moment somewhere in October, I think. I will make an effort to get those up, but I will dribble those in rather than post them all up in a big batch, I think, so avoid anybody getting another barrage of emails from Ko-fi. But yeah, all the posts from 2020 are now up, so you've got everything there from 2014 to 2021, with 2022, most of them up, just a few to go up towards the end of the year. And of course 2023's posts will go up as they appear on Facebook. Right, Paul has said about the unmarked camera vans. He understands Northamptonshire Chief Constable is also planning to reintroduce dedicated traffic police to the county's roads to deal with poor driving standards. Well, yes, I think that's probably a better idea, frankly. You get to talk to somebody who tells you off rather than arrive or get a ticket which arrives through the post, and the opportunity to simply send them a check. I think it's a far better idea to stop and talk to people than it is to just ticket them remotely. So good for him if he's going to do that. Right, okay. Moving on rapidly. If you can't build them, buy them. Now, Royal Enfield's parent company, which is Eicher Motors, has announced a strategic investment in a Spanish e-bike maker, Stark Future. Now, this news, which was revealed in a press release on December the 30th, announced that the Indian manufacturer will make a strategic investment in the Spanish business with initial funding of $50 million, and that translates to just over a 10% equity stake in Stark Future SL, and they will also get to nominate a director to the board of Stark Future. Now, the two companies have planned to collaborate on research and development of electric motorcycles, including technology sharing, technical licensing, and manufacturing. Now, back in 2021, Stark Future launched a first high-performance electric motorcycle, which was designed for motocross, and this was the Stark Varg. Now, the claims for this bike are pretty impressive. The powertrain is described as class leading with 80 horsepower. Actually, I've got a photograph of that, so I don't know why I haven't put that up. Where is it? There it is. I've got my photos out of order slightly. Okay, so there we have the Stark Varg. As I say, it's a motocross bike. It is in full power mode, 80 horsepower, but it's said to be multiple bikes in one, since the power settings can be switched to mimic everything from a 125 two-stroke up to a 650 four-stroke. At the same time, the quick charge battery can deliver what's described as a full moto at Grand Prix-like intensity, or up to 6 hours of easy trail riding with a 1 to 2 hour recharge time. And the bike also gets multiple rider modes. Let me just take that off the screen. You apparently get up to 100 different ride modes, which can change the power curve, the engine braking, the traction control, and also virtual flywheel weight, which is an interesting one because that will affect the way the bike decelerates as much as accelerates. The battery itself is said to be one of the most compact and energy dense in the world, which is 6 kilowatts, but less than 32 kilograms. Now, the statement from Eicher says that Stark have created an absolutely astounding motocross motorcycle, and that Stark Future has the highest potential for real breakout growth in the EV leisure space with this model, and the potential to use this strong base to extend into other contiguous segments and beyond. Now, presumably that means road bikes, as that's mostly what Royal Enfield are interested in. Stark said to now partner with one of the very first motorcycle brands in history and to be part of their journey towards sustainability is a huge inspiration for us at Stark. With the Stark Varg, we believe we have a launch model that will reset benchmarks. So to know that the technological basis will spread much further and filter into more machinery and products is a source of pride for us. It's been a short, intense, an incredible journey for us so far, but our link with Royal Enfield and what lies in store in the coming years on brilliant signs for the future. So it will be interesting to see how this particular partnership can meld the uniquely retro-looking Royal Enfield DNA with a cutting-edge electric motorcycle, that's for sure. Now, a new battery technology from Innovate is promising to speed up charge times for Lightning e-bikes, and this, if it's going to work and if it's going to be affordable, could be a bit of a game changer. Californian firm Innovate, they specialize in extreme fast charge and high energy density battery technologies, and specifically they have aimed at reducing recharge times and therefore shrinking the gap which exists for refueling, for want of a better word, an electric motorcycle compared with a conventional petrol engine bike, something that many people still say puts them off switching to an electric motorcycle. So as part of a product evaluation and validation exercise, Lightning have integrated a 24 kilowatt hour battery pack with Innovate technology into their 118 brake horsepower Strike carbon e-motorcycle. Now, 24 kilowatt hour is pretty big. If you know about the zeros, for example, they are somewhere around about 11 point something kilowatts, kilowatt hours. So this is double that. Even with the drop-in charge tank that Zero offer, I think you're only up to about 14 kilowatt hour. So 24 kilowatt hour is a lot of power compared with other bikes on the market. But here's the really interesting bit. That battery has been successfully tested at a charging rate that delivers an additional 135 miles of range in less than 10 minutes. Now, Lightning claimed that the charge time for similar production electric motorcycles is between 1 and 4 hours. Now, in addition to the faster charging, ENEVATE's XFC technology is said to have a higher energy density. I've just mentioned that that battery does appear to have a lot of power stuffed into it, plus improved low temperature operation. So basically you'll get the power out of the battery in cold weather. Lower production costs, which remains to be seen, and safety benefits over the existing technology batteries. Now, ENEVATE CEO, one Robert A. Arango, he said, for the consumer, this means that riders of electric motorcycles with ENEVATE technology can now ride all day alongside conventional motorcycles without being left waiting hours at the charger. The Strike Carbon /ENEVATE prototype currently has managed 1,000 miles plus on-road testing whilst refueling at public charging stations. Lightning Motorcycle CEO and founder Richard Hatfield, he said this has been an outstanding partnership with ENEVATE, as together we push the boundaries in e-motorcycle innovation by achieving the fastest motorcycle charging rate reached from a public charger. So just that one question remains: the price at which the technology will become available to consumers. So don't forget, if you do want to support me to keep me producing these shows, do pop over to my coffee page. You can drop me a coffee over there, which always is appreciated. Thank you to the supporters who've already done so. Several of the people on this page have dropped me a coffee, and it is always good. But just pop over there and you'll also get access to all those new posts I've been putting up. There's around 900 already up online, better biking posts for you to read and enjoy. So, okay, a couple of comments have come in. Let me just get the banner off the screen and I'll go and read the comments. Kevin has said some forces may wish to focus on frontline service delivery rather than reducing public support from what some may regard as a disproportionate enforcement of minor speeding offences. Well, yes, oddly enough, I could agree with that, and we're still waiting to see a representative from our local police force after we reported an incident before Christmas. We still haven't seen anybody. And Sue has looked in. She says she's late on parade. Don't worry, you can always catch up, Sue. Right. Meanwhile, back in the world of petrol heads, Harley-Davidson has announced it will start the celebration of its 120th year of continuous production of motorcycles on January the 18th. Now, Harley are keen to point out that whilst other brands, which include Indian, Triumph, Royal Enfield, BSA and Norton, have got a longer history, none of them have been continuously in production of powered two-wheelers. And Harley-Davidson's chairman, president and CEO, Jochen Zeitz, said, 2023 marks the 120th anniversary of Harley-Davidson, during which we'll honour our rich heritage, celebrate with our fans and riding community, and reveal our newest motorcycles and product offerings. Now, if 120 seems a slightly odd anniversary to celebrate, I guess it's because there won't be many more big numbers when it comes to producing petrol engines. Though Harley's Livewire spin-off may well carry on building bikes, they won't be the thumping great petrol engine V-twins we've come to associate with the Harley-Davidson name. Now, I often get bizarre adverts pop up whilst I'm searching for news reports, but I have to say this is the weirdest one yet, because this really doesn't look much like an electric bike to me. I would say that that is a fairly obviously a computer keyboard. What on earth that ad was all about, I have no idea, because I didn't even bother to follow the link. Right, and so finally, back to the story that I introduced on Sunday about the rider who'd been wrongly denied a license to ride his motorcycles for more than 3 years. Now, as I explained on the Sunday show, Google had flagged up this particular document in my newsfeed, but oddly, when I went to look at the page on the Parliamentary and Health Service on Ombudsman's news and blog pages, it had disappeared. I did email the Ombudsman for more information, but as of this morning, I've still not received a reply to that. But Hallam kindly sent me the link to the story, which appeared in The Sun yesterday. And so this is what I discovered when I read the Sun story. Now, I was interested to find out what had happened here, because the rider in question had held a motorcycle license and then discovered that the entitlement was missing from his license. Now, this is something that the DVSA do all too often. They miss off specific entitlements when licenses are renewed. It's not exclusive to motorcycles, though it does happen to motorcyclists probably more often than any of the other license holders like HGV or PSV. And as I said on Sunday, though the DVSA do include a big warning that you should check that replacement license before you simply stuff it in your wallet, most people do indeed forget to do that. I have to admit to that error myself. And then, of course, at some point down the line, they discover that the license is missing the motorcycle entitlement, and then they go off to the DSA expecting the DVSA to correct it. And at that point, they discover that the DVSA don't actually hold the correct prior record. They only hold the incorrect current record of entitlement, which is actually on the license. So as far as they're concerned, at that point, no error was made, and the DVSA will tell you that the only way to get your entitlement back is to take a new test. To give you some flavour of how often this happens, I would say that when we were running the training schools between when I was working between 95 and 2007 or so as a basic trainer, we would probably get somebody in every couple of months who had lost their license and was going through the whole procedure to get their license back again. And not surprisingly, riders aren't very happy about that. So I was interested to hear Paul Olsen's story. Now, it seems that what happened is this: he'd been riding for over 50 years, and he got a British driving license and a motorcycle entitlement when he moved to the UK from San Francisco in 1969. So he's been here quite a while with those licenses. And in the early 1970s, he said he was reissued with a lifetime license. I'm not quite sure he's got that date right, because the photo card came out considerably later than 1970. But anyway, the point is that when he tried to get a new motorcycle insured in 2018, he was informed he didn't have the right license for the bike. And he says somewhere along the way, the DVLA must have dropped the ball. This was before everything became digitized, so I didn't know that the entitlement was no longer on my license. Well, the fact is, of course, that a check of the license in his hand would have shown him that entitlement was missing. But after complaining unsuccessfully to the DVLA, Paul went to the Independent Complaints Assessor, the ICA. Now, the ICA found that it was more likely than not that he had held a full motorcycle entitlement, but they couldn't recommend that the DVLA gave him a new entitlement because they had followed the DVLA, this is, had followed their own procedure. But the ICA did say that the outcome of Mr. Olsen's case was perverse and unfair, and he then took that case on to the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman, the PHSO, and that was where I picked up this part story on Sunday. Now, the new information I've discovered is the Ombudsman actually found that DVLA was too rigid when deciding that his evidence didn't prove that he was entitled to ride motorcycles. And crucially, they also found that the DVLA's record keeping was flawed. And this was their decision. They directed the DVLA to apologise, to refund the £70 it had cost Paul to cancel his insurance, and to give him £1,000 in compensation. But most importantly, they also asked the DVLA to use their discretion to reinstate the entitlement to drive a motorcycle on his licence. And the DVLA duly complied with all of it. Now, not surprisingly, Paul said he was delighted at the outcome because he was so fed up with the DVLA being, quote, unreasonable, unquote. And that's a position that many riders will have found themselves in. Now, the question is, does this set a precedent? I hope it does, because it does show a route forward for riders who've lost their license due to DVSA errors. Now, I will emphasize yet again that there is a responsibility on individuals to check their license when it comes back from the DVLA or DVSA as it is now, to make sure it is actually correct. But the point is that the DVSA shouldn't be making these mistakes in the first place. Now, whether if you come across your license missing your motorcycle entitlement and you've sort of missed the time cut-off point where the DVSA rely on the incorrect computer evidence to say whether or not you've got a license, I don't know. But if you have to go to the Ombudsman to look into the case, or whether the DVSA will begin to accept evidence such as a cancelled photo card that previously showed motorcycle entitlement as evidence that they've made a mistake, I don't know that, but perhaps, if anything, they will put in place some decent protections against making this kind of error in the first place. So anyway, there we go. I think that's quite an important story. That brings me to the end of today's show. It only remains for me to remind you about the presentations which are coming up, the next events from Survival Skills. There's my blackboard with what's happening. January's live event will be the Armchair Riding talk about sports psychology, the science that underpins how sports people learn and behave and react, and it has direct applications to motorcycling. And one particular one is the skill of using a technique called visualization, where you actually basically close your eyes and use your imagination to review how you'll deal with a situation that you cannot possibly practice for. Taking a penalty in a World Cup final is a good example, but we can use that on a motorcycle to anticipate our behavior if a car pulls out. It's not something we can physically practice, but we can practice it in our head, and that's what sports psychology helps us to do. February's live event will be Science of Being Seen, and that will be an in-depth, detailed look at the latest research on day riding lights and their impact on the Smidsey collision. I noticed Safi Sprocket was talking about high-vis clothing the other day and came to a sort of a no conclusion. Well, I've got science here to tell you about day riding lights. So those are on Wednesday, the 11th of January, second Wednesday in January, and Wednesday, the 1st of February, the 1st February Wednesday, respectively, both at 8 o'clock. And you can book those at my usual Tidy HQ link. Excuse me. Do pop over there if you are interested. £5 gets you a ticket to those, and you'll be able to either watch live, or you can catch up if you can't do the live show. The show will be available for several days after the event, so you don't miss it if anything goes wrong in your timetabling. Links just going up online. Okay, anything else? Kevin says that targeting non-insured or unlicensed drivers and riders might be a better place to focus traffic resources. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. There's scary numbers of uninsured drivers around in London, and of course we've seen the problems with delivery riders too. Anyway, hey ho. that is pretty much the end of it for today. Thank you once again for looking in. And if you are going out today on the bike, it looks dry at the moment down here in London, a bit grey and miserable. But make sure that you stay shiny side up.